Our tale begins with a man named Eddie Palmer, who comes back to his small Louisiana town after spending 12 long years behind bars. As he arrives, his grandmother Vivian welcomes him with open arms and a warm embrace, clearly overjoyed to see him home again. She had been expecting him earlier, but the bus was running late. She mentions that she would have picked him up in town, but they no longer allow her to drive. She had carefully prepared his old room for his return. Eddie then enters his childhood bedroom and finds everything exactly as he remembered it. Looking through the window, he notices his neighbors, a woman named Shelley, and her young son Sam. It becomes immediately apparent that they are facing difficult times. Vivian explains to Eddie that she would have evicted Shelley and her boyfriend from the trailer park long ago due to their troublesome behavior, but she cannot do so because of little Sam. During their evening meal, Vivian gently advises Eddie to search for employment and rebuild his life. She understands that second chances are hard to come by in small towns. She warns him that self-pity will only make his situation worse. Eddie listens carefully and realizes he must comply with the terms of his parole. The next day, Eddie begins his job search, but quickly discovers that finding employment with a criminal record proves extremely challenging. Employers politely decline his applications, promising to call if positions become available. That evening, Eddie visits the local bar where he reunites with old friends. They share laughs and reminisce about their youth. His friend Daryl proudly informs him that Eddie's old football touchdown record was finally broken just a few years earlier by Daryl's own son. Another friend, Cole, who now serves as the town sheriff, greets Eddie warmly and expresses hope that he can successfully rebuild his life. Later that night, Shelley appears at the bar and begins flirting with Eddie. The following morning, after consuming too much alcohol the previous evening, Eddie steps outside early. Vivian notices him and appears shocked and worried. She understands that old habits are difficult to break and fears Eddie might stumble again. At 10 o'clock, Vivian wakes Eddie so they can attend church together, bringing Sam along with them. At the service, congregation members stare at Eddie and whisper among themselves, passing judgment based on his past. In small communities, gossip often outlasts forgiveness. Sam also struggles to connect with the other children. After the church service, while Vivian and Eddie engage in polite conversation with familiar faces, Daryl observes that Sam behaves differently from other boys his age, displaying more feminine characteristics. Eddie overhears someone making crude comments about the child. Upon returning home, Vivian kindly provides Sam with food, demonstrating her genuine care for the boy. Despite his release from prison, Eddie continues to feel trapped by his old patterns of behavior. The next morning, Vivian gives Eddie a shopping list and money, though Eddie feels embarrassed accepting financial help from her. As Eddie prepares to leave, he observes Shelley driving away with her boyfriend. At the grocery store, he notices a help wanted sign, but learns the position has already been filled. Eddie suspects they simply refuse to hire someone with his background. Back home, Eddie discovers Sam brushing Vivian's hair while she rests on the sofa. Vivian informs Eddie that Sam will be staying with them temporarily because Shelley has disappeared once again. Eddie notices Sam's fondness for playing with dolls and tells the boy that such toys are inappropriate for boys. However, Sam firmly maintains his preferences, showing quiet courage that impresses even Eddie. During dinner, Vivian inquires about Eddie's job search progress. Eddie becomes irritated by the constant reminders of his responsibilities. Tension builds when Vivian accuses him of keeping some of the grocery money for himself. She claims the change was short by over $12. Eddie grows defensive, insisting he returned all the money correctly. Feeling frustrated and desperate to prove his commitment, Eddie notices an advertisement for a janitor position at the local school and decides to apply. The following morning, Eddie attends his job interview at the school. He works hard to emphasize his exemplary behavior during his 13-year imprisonment. The school officials, Mr. Sibbs and Principal Forbes, appear uncertain about hiring him. However, when they learn about Eddie's past as a talented football player and scholar at Louisiana State University, Principal Forbes expresses his belief in second chances and promises to discuss the matter with the school board. That evening during dinner, Sam defends Eddie, telling Vivian she was wrong to accuse him of theft. Shortly afterward, Eddie receives the phone call informing him that he has been hired as the school janitor. Though it represents a modest achievement, it feels monumental to Eddie. Sam attends the same school where Eddie now works. The boy finds it easier to form friendships with girls, rather than boys. His teacher, Maggie Hayes, shows particular concern for his well-being and watches over him protectively. Some community members suggest that Vivian should contact Child Protective Services to place Sam in foster care. However, Vivian becomes upset by such suggestions, believing that family bonds are built on love rather than blood relation. One morning, Eddie finds Sam watching fairy princess cartoons and playing with dolls. When Sam explains that Vivian is still sleeping, Eddie senses something is amiss. Upon checking on her, he makes the devastating discovery that Vivian has passed away peacefully during the night. Vivian's funeral takes place soon after, with many townspeople attending to pay their respects. Her death creates an enormous void in both Eddie's and Sam's lives. Eddie's supervisor grants him the following day off to grieve. At home, Sam sits quietly examining Vivian's makeup collection, desperately missing her presence. Overwhelmed by grief, Eddie goes to the bar that evening to drink. Returning home late, he finds Sam sleeping on the couch. The next morning, he wakes the boy and instructs him to pack his belongings. Confused and frightened, Sam follows Eddie to the police station. Eddie explains to his friend Cole that Shelley has been missing for 2 weeks and remains unreachable. Cole informs Eddie that Child Protective Services will take Sam and place him in an institutional care facility. As Eddie prepares to leave the station, he sees Sam watching him through the window with heartbroken eyes. Unable to abandon the child, Eddie changes his mind and brings Sam back home. Sometimes doing what is right requires breaking conventional rules. From that moment forward, Eddie assumes responsibility for Sam's care. The boy demonstrates remarkable independence by preparing for school on his own and catching the bus punctually each morning. One afternoon, Maggie visits to assess Sam's living conditions. Though Eddie feels nervous about the inspection, he attempts to appear confident. Maggie proves kind and supportive, leaving her contact information should Eddie need assistance. That evening, Eddie continues attempting to reach Sam's mother by phone, but Shelley still does not answer. Despite never intending to become a guardian, Eddie feels a powerful sense of duty towards Sam. Sam refuses to abandon his beloved dolls. One evening, he asks Eddie when his mother will return. Eddie sadly admits he has no idea when that might happen. During their conversation, Sam reveals that he sometimes feels angry about his mother's abandonment and wonders if Eddie ever felt similar emotions toward his own mother. Eddie responds that he barely knew his mother, but did know his father, and admits he sometimes misses him. That night, after putting Sam to bed, Eddie examines an old family photograph album filled with images and newspaper clippings from his days as a local football celebrity. The collection serves as a bittersweet reminder of his former life and lost potential. The following morning, Eddie drives Sam to school. Sam excitedly shares his love for princess cartoons, proudly displaying his princess-decorated lunchbox that his mother had purchased on sale. Later, a woman named Lucille calls to invite Sam for a playdate with her daughter Emily. She mentions that Sam speaks of Eddie as a father figure and wants to ensure Eddie approves of the arrangement. Eddie agrees to the visit. At 5 o'clock, Eddie arrives to collect Sam. Lucille invites him to participate in a pretend tea party with the children. Though Eddie feels awkward in the situation, he joins politely. He again observes how different Sam is from typical boys, but keeps his observations private. That evening, Eddie takes Sam to a local football game. While sitting in the bleachers, he shares stories about his own glory days on the field. Maggie also attends the game and suggests they all go bowling together sometime. Meanwhile, Daryl warns Eddie to avoid getting involved with Shelley, describing her as dangerous and destructive. During the game, Eddie watches the current football star who broke his old scoring record. He asks Daryl about the whereabouts of the people involved in his past criminal activities. Daryl advises Eddie to forget about them entirely, maintaining his belief that Eddie was wrongfully imprisoned. After the game, Sam attempts to imitate the cheerleaders' dance moves. Following Sam's return home, Eddie goes back to the bar where Daryl creates a disturbance while heavily intoxicated. The bar owner, Mr. Sibbs, ejects them, and Eddie helps escort Daryl outside. The next morning, Sam awakens Eddie with great excitement about their planned bowling outing with Maggie. During their visit to the bowling alley, Sam enjoys himself tremendously, while Eddie and Maggie engage in deeper conversation. Eddie reveals that he attended college for 1 year before his life took a destructive turn. Maggie shares details about her failed marriage and her decision to return home to be closer to family. Gradually, Eddie gains confidence in his role as Sam's caretaker. At work, he apologizes to Mr. Sibbs for Daryl's inappropriate behavior. Principal Forbes also speaks privately with Sam to ensure he feels secure in his home environment, asking carefully about his relationship with Eddie and whether everything is acceptable in their living situation. As part of his parole requirements, Eddie must report regularly to the police station. When Sam curiously asks about these visits, Eddie honestly explains that years ago he attempted to steal money that did not belong to him and must now face the consequences of that mistake. Eddie's transparency with Sam demonstrates his commitment to being a positive role model. Sam also makes an important confession, admitting that he once stole a toy from a classmate and now feels tremendous guilt about the action. He reveals that the victim cried when the toy went missing and that he lied when the teacher asked if anyone had seen it. Eddie helps Sam understand that returning the stolen item would help the other child feel better. Meanwhile, Eddie discovers new purpose in his life. For the first time in years, he feels genuinely needed by another person. This sensation provides him with strength and motivation to continue moving forward positively. The next morning, Eddie and Sam prepare breakfast together. Eddie insists that Sam eat more than just biscuits for better nutrition. Following Eddie's guidance, Sam courageously returns the stolen toy to its rightful owner. Soon after, they celebrate Sam's birthday with a small party. Maggie and Emily attend the celebration, bringing warmth to the occasion. Eddie surprises Sam with a ukulele as a birthday gift. Though Sam is not particularly interested in music, he appreciates the thoughtful present. While the children play, Maggie quietly asks Eddie about his mother. He shares that his mother abandoned him when he was only 5 years old, and that Vivian subsequently raised him as her own child. Moved by this revelation, Maggie offers to help Eddie sort through accumulated mail at the house. Among the correspondence, they discover a letter from an attorney requesting Eddie contact him regarding Vivian's last will and testament. The devastating news reveals that Vivian bequeathed her house and all possessions to the church, leaving Eddie only $5,000. This development creates a significant obstacle, as Eddie will have merely 30 days to vacate the property after its sale. Meanwhile, Sam faces bullying from classmates who target him for his differences. When Eddie witnesses this harassment, he immediately intervenes to protect Sam. The bullies become frightened by Eddie's imposing presence and quickly retreat. At home, Sam expresses his desire to write to the Fairy Princess television show to join their fan club. Eddie attempts to discourage this idea, explaining that the show primarily caters to girls, but Sam remains determined in his conviction that nothing is wrong with his interests. During a shopping trip, Sam excitedly selects a princess costume for Halloween. Eddie again tries to suggest alternatives, but Sam maintains his choice. An elderly woman in the store confronts Eddie, accusing him of being an unfit guardian due to his criminal background, and threatening to contact Child Protective Services. This confrontation deeply affects Eddie, but Sam's defense of him demonstrates the boy's genuine belief in Eddie's goodness, helping Eddie believe in himself. In school, Sam proudly announces his intention to dress as Princess Penelope for the Halloween celebration. Eddie attempts unsuccessfully to change Sam's mind, but ultimately accepts his decision. At the party, other children tease Sam and call him by a girl's name. However, the teacher arrives dressed as Principal Forbes, showing support for Sam's choice and emphasizing that Halloween allows everyone to be whoever they want to be. That evening, Maggie invites Eddie and Sam for dinner. During the meal, Sam appears happy and enjoys the treats provided. Gathering her courage, Maggie asks Eddie about his imprisonment. Though difficult to discuss, Eddie finds the strength to share his story. He explains his past as a star football player at the university level. After suffering a career-ending injury, doctors informed him he would never play again. Eddie fell into severe depression, returned home, and began living recklessly. A member of his group frequently boasted about his father's money, kept in a home safe. Eventually, they decided to rob the house, but the father returned unexpectedly. In panic, Eddie assaulted the man, committing the worst mistake of his life. Later that evening, after Sam falls asleep, Maggie suggests that Eddie spend the night at her home, indicating a developing romantic relationship. The following day after school, Emily invites Sam to her house again, bringing him great joy. During a break from work, Eddie researches the process of becoming Sam's legal guardian. Later, he visits Maggie's classroom, seeking assistance with donating Vivian's belongings to charity. Suddenly, Sam bursts into the room crying, having been hurt by Daryl. Through tears, Sam explains that adult men, not children, had tormented him. The revelation that Daryl was involved enrages Eddie beyond control. Despite Maggie's attempts to stop him, Eddie storms out to confront Daryl at a local bar. When Daryl makes derogatory comments about Sam, calling the boy abnormal, Eddie physically attacks him. Eddie's violent reaction reveals that his anger issues remain beneath the surface. Other patrons must separate them to end the fight. Eddie also threatens Cole, the police officer who failed to protect Sam from the harassment. Upon returning home, Maggie expresses her disappointment that Eddie resorted to violence, explaining that such responses are never appropriate solutions. Disheartened by Eddie's apparent lack of change, Maggie ends their developing relationship. The next morning, Eddie gently reassures Sam that none of the harassment was his fault, explaining that Daryl is simply a bad person. To lift Sam's spirits, Eddie helps him compose the letter to the Fairy Princess show, finally supporting Sam's dream wholeheartedly. Unexpectedly, Shelley arrives at their door, appearing ill and drug-affected. She has come to reclaim her son. Naturally, Sam feels heartbroken by this development. Eddie promises Sam he can visit whenever he wants, and they embrace tightly, neither wanting to separate. Eddie feels devastated, but recognizes that Sam legally belongs with his biological mother. When Shelley notices the ukulele, she realizes with guilt that she missed her son's birthday entirely. She quickly fabricates a lie about having purchased him a gift as well. Eddie, feeling emotionally empty, immerses himself in work as a distraction mechanism. He later informs Maggie that Shelley has returned, but their conversation does not progress positively. Feeling directionless, Eddie goes to a bar but ultimately chooses not to drink alcohol. The following morning, Eddie discovers Sam sitting dejectedly on the porch. Sam reports that Jerry, Shelley's boyfriend, discarded his beloved lunchbox and called him shameful names. Eddie comforts the child and drives him to school. Sam also reveals that he and his mother will soon move in with Jerry, requiring him to change schools. Throughout the day, Eddie contemplates the troubling situation. Observing Jerry's behavior, Eddie realizes the man is equally problematic as Shelley in terms of providing appropriate care for Sam. That same day, Eddie receives devastating news that Child Protective Services has removed Sam from Shelley's custody. Shelley arrives in tears to explain the circumstances. Eddie rushes to the police station, where an officer informs him that a court hearing will determine whether Sam returns to Shelley or enters the foster care system. That evening, Eddie visits Shelley's trailer and desperately pleads with her to grant him legal guardianship of Sam. He presents official custody papers for her signature. Shelley reacts with fury, believing Eddie considers himself superior to her and accusing him of attempting to purchase her child. Eddie warns her that the court will likely deny her custody due to her lifestyle choices. Shelley screams that she will overcome her addictions for Sam's sake and forces Eddie to leave. Having exhausted other options, Eddie asks Maggie to accompany him to the custody hearing. She agrees to provide support. During the proceedings, the judge acknowledges that Eddie has demonstrated positive changes in his behavior. However, Eddie lacks stable housing and must complete his probation period before qualifying for custody consideration. Tearfully, Eddie expresses his desire to care for Sam because he understands the pain of abandonment. Nevertheless, the judge denies his custody request. The judge rules that Sam will remain in state care, placed in a registered foster home until his mother becomes capable of resuming custody. Eddie pleads desperately, explaining his personal experience with abandonment and his determination not to abandon Sam. Suddenly, Shelley bursts into the courtroom, begging the judge to return her son. She argues that Sam is a special child who struggles socially and requires his mother's care. Moved by her emotional appeal, the judge grants custody back to Shelley. In the days following, Eddie regularly hears arguments between Shelley and Jerry through the thin trailer walls. When Eddie realizes Shelley is relapsing into drug use, he makes a desperate decision to take Sam and flee to safety. At a gas station during their escape, Eddie contacts Maggie and learns that Shelley has reported him to police as a kidnapper. Now considered a fugitive, Eddie reassures Sam that everything will work out properly. Eventually, Eddie makes the mature decision to surrender himself to authorities. Officer Cole, recognizing the complexity of the situation, arranges for Sam to stay with Maggie temporarily. As Eddie is arrested and taken away, Sam runs after the police vehicle, crying and accusing his mother of never truly loving him, while Eddie struggles to contain his own tears. Back in jail, Eddie sits in despair, believing his situation is hopeless. However, Cole soon arrives with unexpected good news. Shelley has changed her official statement, now claiming she asked Eddie to take Sam to get food. Due to this revised testimony, all charges against Eddie are dropped immediately. Filled with renewed hope, Eddie goes directly to Maggie's home where she has been caring for Sam. Shortly after his arrival, Shelley appears at the door, but Sam refuses to acknowledge or speak with her. Realizing she has failed as a mother, Shelley makes the difficult decision to grant full custody to Eddie. Though she genuinely loves Sam, she understands he will have better opportunities and stability with Eddie as his guardian. Mother and son share an emotional farewell before she departs permanently. Finally, Eddie can officially become Sam's adoptive father. Their future begins to look brighter as Eddie's employment remains secure and they prepare to relocate from Vivian's house. As the story concludes, they discover a letter in their mailbox addressed to Sam. The correspondence comes from the Fairy Princess show television program. Sam expresses his excitement about receiving his first piece of personal mail. When they open the envelope together, Sam's face illuminates with pure joy and wonder. Together, they step forward into a new chapter of their lives as father and son, the story ending on a note that combines sadness for past struggles with genuine hope for their shared future.